So today I want to talk about data. More importantly, getting data into a thing. You see, I use Elasticsearch for a lot of stuff. I do. It's my job. But I'm often trying to find more and more unique ways to do different things with the same tools. You see, I spend a lot of time getting data in, and the data is usually different. Sometimes it's a lot of data, and sometimes it's just data to play around with. That said, Elasticsearch is good enough to give us a few different tools to work with different types of data coming from different places. So I'm going to break down a few scenarios that I've deemed to be the most usual for me, and that's the big thing, is it's for me, and how I handle getting that data in. For all of these examples, I'm going to be using some data that I made up. And we're going to try to answer the question of, is my cat evil? Obviously, I'm going to be doing things quickly, and I'm going to be skipping a few steps. But if you follow this, you should be able to at least get a good start as to where you would think about going to get your data into Elasticsearch. Before we start adding the data in, we first need to establish a connection. Whether we're getting data in or data out, you need a connection to whatever it is, wherever the data is going to call home. So for this example, we're going to create a connection.py file that just imports Elasticsearch, and from there we create an Elasticsearch class. This class is very watered down to have just the basics. Now that we have our connection, let's talk about the most simple use case here. I have a single instance where my cat caught a case of the zoomies and decided to start running through the house late at night and knocked a few things over. We don't need a giant app for this. We don't need anything special. We can just throw that data in a dictionary and upload it to Elasticsearch. We're going to use the most simple form of this, and that is the index command based on our client connection. We call client.index, and client can be whatever you want to call it. We provide the index name. We provide the data. It's that simple. This is great when you have data that you need to import really fast. It's good for one-offs, and you know that the data has already been transformed however you want it to be handled by Elasticsearch. Let's say instead of just one piece of data, we have a file that is full of these instances. They're all pretty simple instances. They've all been outlined in a CSV file or a JSON file. But we're able to do the exact same thing. This time, we're just importing the file using import CSV and then parsing through the file as a dict reader, or just importing the JSON and parsing it directly as JSON. Again, these are both very simple. We don't have to do much to make things change. So, I mentioned earlier that you wouldn't need an app for this, but let's just say you did. That's a great scenario to look at. What happens when you have a resource that is dedicated to fielding these requests? Well, for me, this could be a Flask app where I go in and I log the entries as they're happening. I open my Flask app, I enter the data, I hit OK, and now I have a standard structure. Of course, we know data coming from the web needs to usually be modified to fit our data structures. And in order to do that, we want to create some simple rules. And while we could ingest the data, convert it to a dictionary, and then modify it, it's often easier to just deal with it as an object itself. That way, you don't have to do the work twice. You can actually work within the other structures. I find this to be really great when you're using things like Django signals. You already know the data is coming in. You can import that data, create a class object of it, and then make the changes necessary. Finally, you turn that into its own Elasticsearch class object using the next tool that I'm going to talk about, which is elasticsearch-dsl. DSL is a high-level module that gives you the ability to work with your data without having to worry about what the connection or the commands are called. Now, I often use DSL for searching in different types, but I do like the simplicity and Django-like syntax that comes with dealing with concrete data structures. Instead of letting the assumptions be made or inferring what type of data you want based on type, you can actually define this data and create transforms around it. You can also inject your own code to happen at certain points in the process. I find this to be a great way to manipulate the data in a consistent manner every time. Now, I talked about working with files, but what happens when you have a lot of entries? I don't just mean a few hundred or so. I mean thousands, tens of thousands, or even millions. Because Elasticsearch works off of a REST framework, there are often a lot of different things that you have to be in control of during the transmission process. If you try to transmit too much the easy way, you could wind up getting a few errors. This is where the bulk operator comes in. The bulk operator can work with Elasticsearch or Elasticsearch-dsl objects, and from there, it handles the connections for you. To use the bulk command, import elasticsearch.helpers, and you can shorten that to just as helpers, and then replace your client.index with helpers.bulk. From there, you'll add the index to the original function, replace body with actions, and you're good to go. Instead of applying the data directly through actions, you can use a generator to manipulate the data on load. This keeps your code nice and clean, your data concise, and it allows consistent behavior amongst all of the data set, no matter how much data there is. The bulk command will take care of ensuring the connection is stable, handling retries, and making sure that everything scales properly based on your system's needs. I've talked about 4 different ways to ingest this data. I want to give you a bonus. This bonus is kind of new, and it is specifically for those that have a more data science-y approach to things. It's called Elant. Elant is a pandas-like interface for Elasticsearch data, and it works for both getting data in and getting data out. I love using Elant because my brain tends to want to lean towards pandas when I'm dealing with large files of data anyway. And because Elant is designed to work with pandas and like pandas, I can often use a similar structure in how I would format my data to bring it in. In this example, I can take the original files, the CSV or JSON files, import them into a pandas data frame, make my mutations and adjustments as needed, and then finally import that into Elasticsearch using pandas to Elant. Or if a lot of mutation isn't really necessary, I can skip the pandas space completely and just do CSV to Elant. It's that simple, and if you're familiar with pandas, I would recommend taking a look at it. But that said, I hope that I've given you enough examples to show you how easy it is to get your data into Elasticsearch. Whether it's simple or complex, whether it's a little or a lot, Elasticsearch can handle it, and I know you can too. By the way, the answer to is my cat evil or not? Not sure yet, but who knows? Maybe she's telling me to tell you that.